Welcome to Crafting Your Next Move.
Hello and welcome back to Crafting Your Next Move with Lori Kraft, Associate Broker with the Kraft team at Origin Realty Group. Lori is a top producing Houston realtor with more than 15 years of experience helping clients buy and sell homes across the greater Houston area. She and her team combine cutting-edge marketing with excellent service to deliver results that speak for themselves. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about staging secrets. Lori will walk you through some simple, budget-friendly updates that can make a powerful first impression and help your home stand out online as well as in person. Lori, welcome back.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
A lot of sellers picture a huge production when it comes to staging, and I understand why. What does staging actually mean in practical everyday terms?
Well, I think it depends a lot on what you're talking about. Do you have a vacant listing? And yeah, it's a much bigger production. But if you're the normal guy that's selling your house, it's not going to be a huge deal. What we're going to do is, for most agents, they're going to come in, they're going to evaluate the house, they're going to tell you what to take away. They may bring in some pieces to add to it. Maybe there's a room that is too cluttered. We're going to recommend you remove some pieces. Maybe there's some furnishings that look a little dated, or maybe make the house look dated. And maybe it just doesn't match. Like you have a very traditional home and you've brought in all this modern furniture. Then we might make some recommendations to change things up a bit.
How soon should homeowners start thinking about staging?
Before you list, for sure. That is oftentimes part of the consultation. So an agent will come in, they'll evaluate your space, they'll talk to you about what things they think need changed. And then that is often done in the first appointment. And so sometimes we'll do a follow-up, but for the most part, it's done really within the first week of meeting you and talking to you about what needs to happen with the home. And then it's from start to finish, depending on how fast you need to move. It usually takes 2 weeks to 3 weeks to organize everything for homeowners to feel like I've got my house showing its best face. And then we bring in photographers. So I would say at a minimum of a week prior to when you want those photographers in.
Okay. We talked a little before we hit record. My wife's a realtor, as I've mentioned before. So we were talking a little bit about staging, and how you mentioned that there's a difference between a staged home and a lived-in home, and how it can be, like a lived-in home that you spent 20 years in is going to look a certain way for you, whereas a staged home has more appeal to the masses, if you will. Is it difficult sometimes for people to understand that?
I think it is because, we talk about being nose blind. You don't smell the dog in the house because
Right.
You've been living with it for 20 years. The same thing is true for your furnishings. We are used to it. We like the chair there. It makes the most sense to us to put the chair there.
It's functional there. It makes
It's
sense for the
functional
TV
there,
and
right?
all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and people tend to project onto other people. So they assume that if it works for them, it's going to work for somebody else. And it is often hard to help sellers understand that there are sight lines, there are traffic flow patterns, there is congruency. So you want everything to work for the naked eye. You want it to be appealing to that HGTV crowd. And, I know Grandpa likes his chair right there. That's great. Except for the majority of the populace won't. And if they can't get from point A to point B easily, they're going to see this as a problem for the house, not necessarily a problem for the furniture.
Yeah, not everyone can separate what they're seeing in front of them and put their own spin on it.
My belief is no one can. That is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
They can't even see past paint colors. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are a few quick changes that almost always improve how a home looks in photos or showings, no matter the price point?
Well, first thing is the first impression matters, right? So when you're walking up to a house, people say within the first minute. I think it's faster than that. I think within 10 to 15 seconds, people evaluate whether they're going to like this house or not. They just make that unconscious decision. So believe it or not, your best bang for your buck is your front door. Either get it refinished or just replace it entirely. And it's a weird thing. Black doors tend to sell higher and faster. We don't
Really?
know. Yeah, we don't know why. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, if you have a door that lets in no natural light, you might want to consider a full light door or at least a partial light door, because natural light is very appealing to people from a psychological perspective. We want that. We need to see that. And buyers will be turned off by what they perceive as a closed off home. So that might be something to look into. And of course, your curb appeal. You want pretty flowers. And I mentioned this in one of my other videos with you. A yellow flower seem to sell houses. Spruce up that front entrance. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's attractive. Declutter it. And that leads me to the next thing you can do that doesn't really cost you much. Declutter. Get rid of the extra. And one of the ways that I do this is I take some pictures with my iPhone, and whether it's Samsung or whatever, you take some pictures and then really look at it from a critical eye. Where does your eye go? If your eye is all over the place, you've got entirely too much stuff. Mm-hmm. Take down photos of family photos or anything that might be offensive. You may not see it as offensive, but that big UT banner might really offend your A&M guy. So you need to think these things through. So those are cheap, easy. You're laughing, but I'm telling you what.
I believe you.
They just like, yeah, this house has bad mojo. Why? Did you not see the UT flag flying? No, we're out of here. So little things like that don't cost you a dime. And then the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest impact, clean it, deep clean it, scrub it. We talked about this before. Clean your windows. Because again, it goes back to natural light. If you're letting in a lot of light, people feel welcome there. It psychologically is an impact.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a big part of it as well. You mentioned lighting, and color is another thing that can completely change the feel of a space. You mentioned the door, cleaning windows. Are there other tweaks that can make rooms look brighter, more inviting?
You're going to want to change up your traffic flow. Make sure that there is nothing obstructing your pattern from one room to another. If you can open up the room, a lot of people like to walk in and a back of a couch is there because it works for the TV. But when you walk into a back of a couch, you're obstructing. So move it. Open up the rooms. You want these spaces to feel open, breezy, easy to move through. If you've got really old furniture, you're going to need to change that out, and that stinks. And don't throw a bunch of Afghans on stuff, because what that says, you're hiding something. If you're hiding a bunch of torn up furniture, what else is torn up that they can't see? Again, this is psychological impact. Everything with staging is about psychology.
That's super interesting, the psychological aspect of it, because you're right about the curb appeal thing was a trendy term, especially for anybody who watches HGTV, but it really is true. If you walk up to a house and there's weeds in the yard and it's, the front area is dirty and the walkway's got leaves all over it, or it's just not been well kept, in the front of your mind that you can do that and it'll look great. But it's a psychological thing of just seeing it makes it less. It makes you look at the house a different way, even when you can do that stuff to make it better.
Exactly. And you did mention paint, and paint is another relatively inexpensive change, right? It can get very, very expensive if you're doing top to bottom and you're doing all of your trim, because oil-based painting is more expensive than flat. It's bang for your buck. And in this case, that is beside your front door, the most inexpensive thing you can do to make the biggest impact. So if you're still holding on to Harvest Gold from 2005, might be time to spruce that up a bit. We still like white. I will say that colors, of course, change with time and, believe it or not, with the economy. We are done with millennial gray. If your whole house is grays, you might need to change that up. Gray is cold. It took a while. Yeah, as you roll, I know there's a bunch of us out there, right? Gray is cold and it can be unsettling. And people don't think about the impact of color until it's up on the walls. And they love that millennial gray, but they forgot that their hardwoods had a cherry undertone. So now when I talked about, you make sure everything goes together, that is glaring. And they won't be able to tell you why something feels weird, but it will feel weird to them. And then they'll be out. That they're done with that house. So that's why white is your, your color of choice. We joke about builder beige, which is basically an off-white, because it goes and transcends all color palettes. You want to add some color, do it with your pillows. Do it with maybe an accent chair. Don't do it on your walls.
Okay, so mental note, change my millennial gray
Yeah.
walls.
White, but we like more of I would have to change this if I sold my house. I love this color. It's kind of a buttery color, taupey
Yeah.
butter. But if I were selling my house tomorrow, I would take the same color, but I would bring it up 2 shades. So you would have a hint of creaminess, but it would still look white. And I can put whatever I want in here. And
Okay.
that is your goal for your seller. I mean,
Okay.
for your buyer. As a seller, it's your goal for your buyer. You
Right.
want a buyer to look at it and go, oh, my stuff fits here.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
don't want
either
a buyer
totally neutral or at least very subtle if you're going to add color.
Yeah, very, very subtle. I don't like glaring whites. And if anybody ever wanted to ask me, just text me or email me, and I'll be happy to tell you the ones to avoid. But a very, very bright white often has a blue undertone, and that blue undertone will look blue in the wrong lighting. It also will feel like a hospital.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
careful of that.
That clinical look. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very clinical. So you want whites that have a yellow undertone to them. You don't want to get too yellow or you get butter. And I like it, but I wouldn't sell it like this. You want something that has a creamy undertone, but is white. And the little secret to those really high-end homes, like if I'm looking at, I was just in a house in Hunters Creek yesterday, and down in Memorial and down in River Oaks and Tanglewood, those areas, they're going to have lots of darker, richer colors on their walls, but their main rooms are going to be a creamy white. If they are putting color on their cabinets, it's going to be a creamy white. And that's because that feels higher end. It always feels a little bit richer. Stark white feels builder basic.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or IKEA, right?
Yeah.
Feels
Yes.
IKEA. Yeah.
Yes. I love it. Yes. IKEA.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to steer away from that.
Yeah. If you walk into a home that's perfectly staged, what specific details usually tell you that seller really truly went the extra mile?
Accents. That's what matters. And I've got actually a good contrast for it. So I was showing $1 million properties. $1 million, your house better look really pretty good. So we went into $1 million properties, and the first one, they really like gold. Gold is a fine accent piece, but they put gold in everything. They have it in the backsplash. They have it in the fireplace mantle. There's gold fixtures, gold, and more gold. And then compare that to the next house we saw, where it wasn't white and gold, but there were a lot of gold finishes to things, a matte gold, but they offset that very warm color and can be a very glaring color with deep navies. And so when they did their decorations, and they obviously had a designer work on this house, they put in rugs that were cream with some navy. They had accent pillows that were very subtle. They were cream, but then they had little hints of navy. Everything worked from one room to the next. And that's how you know a buyer's going to love it, because everything looks like it goes together.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a blue room and a red room and a purple room and a green room. Everything makes sense. You are going to also have furniture that works. You don't have a bear room where you have sculptures made out of bears and, wooden furniture, and looks like you're in, a nice little cabin in the woods. And then the next room looks like you're in old school Hollywood, where you get Holly glam, where you've got, mirrored finishes and chandeliers. When things don't make sense, it is offensive to a buyer, and they can't always put their finger on it, but they're like, I don't like this. And that's why, because it's not incongruous. So congruity is your number one thing when you're trying to look at how your house shows.
Interesting. Back to that psychological thing again.
Mm-hmm. At staging is all psychological.
Yeah. Do you feel like great photos can save a poorly staged home, or not so much?
They can help a poorly staged home. They can't save it. If it's bad enough, there are no saving that. Yeah. It's kind of a mean thing to say, but it's truth, and it doesn't help people to be, whitewash stuff. If you are an investor and you have a single family rental property that you're trying to put on market or trying to get re-rented, they will make the mistake of saying, I don't care that the tenant's in there. Just go ahead and take pictures. And so I can spend a lot of money on those photos, but you're going to get tenant furniture in there. You've got beds crammed against walls. You've got all kinds of very loud, vibrant sheets with comforters that don't match and pillows that don't make sense. And then you have stuffed animals everywhere. There is no hiding that. And you know what sells homes? Photos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, I've often wondered this. I mean, I suppose I could just ask my wife, but while you're here, I may as well ask you. With staging properties, I know a lot of times, generally speaking, if I'm going to sell my home, it's not going to be vacant. You know what I mean? I'm going to be still living in it. So trying to live within a staged property, how do you handle that part? Especially if you walk into a place, obviously you're not going to say this, but in your mind, you're like, oh my God, this all has to go. Like how do you handle that, or how do people handle that, whether they have kids or pets or whatever, keeping a staged home looking good and getting their stuff out?
It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
So usually we recommend you get a storage facility for the extra, because that family you're talking about, they're going to have tons of stuff that is cluttering up the house.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I have one kid and there's stuff everywhere.
Yeah, there's stuff everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And you have to remind them this isn't forever. Now, in this market, it feels like forever because we have homes sitting a lot longer. But maximum, you're probably looking at 2 or 3 months. You can do anything for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And so we're going to take out the things that are not necessary for your day-to-day life. And I think the thing that stresses out homeowners more than anything is the showing. So they get the doorbell, or they know somebody's coming in an hour, and the kids have finger painted and there's stuff everywhere. So one of the things that I recommend for my homeowners is laundry baskets in every room. And when they're coming for the showing, you just sweep everything into the laundry basket. You pile up those laundry baskets. You either stick it in the garage or you stick it in your car when you take off with your kids. And
that's a really good idea.
Everything's clean and easy. And then you're not constantly stressing about it. Rooms that you don't use, like on the regular, and I would say you're going to have to limit your kids. Maybe, guess what? We're not using the media room anymore. Mm-hmm. Not until this house sells. Sorry, guys. We'll be watching, movies in mom and dad's room. You close off that room. If it's a study, like I won't show you my study. You get to see the pretty side of my study. My study is a hot mess. It's a disaster. So if I were selling this house, I would have to clean it all up, and I would have to have bins for things. So at the end of the workday, or if I know there's a showing, everything goes into a bin. But I will have that room staged so that everything can go in a bin, and then I can move it out.
That's really good. That's a really good idea. For sure. Well, great tips, Lori. As always, very interesting stuff. Staging is it's important, and I hope Lori has given you good reasons why. That's it for our episode today of Crafting Your Next Move with Lori Craft, associate broker with the Craft team at Origin Realty Group. If you're thinking about selling in Cypress, Tomball, or anywhere in the greater Houston area, visit craftrealtyteam.com to learn more or connect directly with Lori and her team. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave us a review, share the episodes with a Houston homeowner who you think will get benefit out of it. Lori, always love chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.